States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to tonight's Irondequoit Planning Board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exits. They are to the left of this room. In the event of emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs and do not use the elevator. The meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record and minutes, so please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items on the agenda in the order that they appear. There are extra copies over near the door. After the case has been called, the applicant and/or representative shall come to the podium, identify themselves, give their address, and then present their case. If planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. If the case is a public hearing, it will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding the application will come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address, and direct any questions to the board and only to the board. Once all public input has been completed, the applicant or site representative will be given the opportunity to respond to any public input. Once all public input has been completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed to the public input and the board will then move on to a decision. No further input is allowed at this point. Please call the first case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First case on the agenda is case number PB 1903-1. Upon the matter of request by Marathon Engineering, acting as agent for Wegman Companies, Inc., for signage approval to install building and freestanding signage on premises 2111 Hudson Avenue in a C business district.
Good evening, Matt Tomlinson from Marathon Engineering. Corinne Nicholas representing the owners with me as well. We appear before the planning board's workshop, so I'll keep this brief and then answer any questions that may come up, but we're here for the conversion to self-storage of the old Chase Pitkin property, 2111 Hudson Avenue. At the time we received planning board approval for that project, we stated that we would be coming back for the signage approvals, which is why we're here tonight. I believe that the board has the colored package, which I'll also leave up here for reference for anyone that has questions, as it's a little easier to follow than the plan that I have down in front of me. I just want to step through the signage real quick and then touch on the comments we received from the HIP group, as well as feedback from the workshop for some changes that we would like to discuss with the board as compromise on the internally lit signage. So signs 1, 2, and 7, if the board remembers, are the signs that are proposed to be lit. Signs 1 and 7 are on the building, both the east and the north faces. Signage space has been reserved in the allowable signage by code for a second tenant in the old Summit building on the south side, which is currently vacant. That totals approximately 4,100 square feet of leasable space. In addition, there is wayfinding signage, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Sign 2, also proposed to be double-sided, internally lit, out at the roadway as a monument sign. And that also has some space reserved in the allowable square footage for signage for a future tenant. So at the workshop, there was a question related to hours of operation, and it was relayed to us that there were some conditions that the town has become in the practice of requiring, as far as restricting hours of lighting bracketed somewhere around the hours of operation. And so the question was raised for a 24-hour facility. How does that come into play? And we're still working through whether or not this will be 24-hour access. It won't be operated by employees 24 hours, but outside of the normal office hours, access will be extended to folks who rent storage units within this building. And so what we would like to offer is, these are fully dimmable signs. We would like to offer that the building mounted signage be dimmed to 50% of the normal illuminance levels between midnight and 5 a.m. We anticipate, whether or not folks are allowed in 24 hours, that the primary access times would be between 6 a.m. and roughly 11 p.m., regardless of whether or not 24-hour access is provided. And then we would propose for those same hours that the monument sign, which we would prefer to maintain as internally lit, be turned off for those same hours. So 50% on the building between midnight and 5 a.m. and the monument sign be turned off from midnight to 5 a.m. There was also a comment in the HIP letter, which we were provided a copy of, commenting on the size of the wayfinding signage. We are proposing panels roughly 42 inches by 24 inches, and those are 2 feet off the ground. We would be amenable to those being reduced if the board saw the need for that. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion at the workshop meeting, but if that's something that the board would request, we can definitely reduce the size of that signage. There isn't specific guidelines within the code for the wayfinding signage, so that's somewhat left up to the board's discretion, and we'd be willing to work with whatever conditions you had there. So with that, I think I touched on the majority of the questions or comments that have been provided either by the board at the workshop or comments received, and I'd like to answer any questions you folks have.
Anybody on the board have a question?
I do. About the directional signage, the HIP letter says that they're 4 feet by, they're about 4 feet by 4 feet, but that's taking into, I think that's taking into account the space from the ground to the top. So the sign itself is not actually 4 feet by 4 feet. It's about 2 feet by 3 feet if you don't take into consideration
Correct.
the gap
The
between.
panel itself, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Are those intended to be lit all the time also, the wave?
No, those are just panels, no lighting,
No lighting on
electric
those.
to them or anything.
And what is 50%?
What is 50%? I don't know if you're asking a question on the lumens of the sign itself, I don't know that answer.
But the office hours are still 8 to 5 as represented in the workshop?
That's correct.
All right.
So I think you were looking for, oh, sorry.
I just have one quick question,
ahead.
just to clarify, because I was writing a note down, I apologize, Matt. The signs that are lit are signs 1, 2, and
7.
7. So you are proposing that 7 is lit. What would happen with 7 that would dim to 50% from what you were saying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I have two questions. One, the second tenant sign, if that ever comes back, you would bring that back to the board?
It was
Or,
discussed at the workshop as long as it stayed within the requirements of sizing and/or illuminance. The building department would reach out to you folks when an application was made to determine if it needed to come back here.
so then you're actually asking for 4 lit signs, then, correct?
If I can ask for something that I don't know what it'll look like or what it'll be, I suppose so, but
Well, you said the illum, so that's why I'm asking.
I would anticipate that that one would be illuminated also. However, we have no knowledge of operating hours or anything like that where we could put a condition on it.
Okay. That's fair. The other question I had was, you said you'd be willing to do something different with the directional signs. And Mr. Huber corrected the size of the sign. Were you looking for a recommendation, or are you looking for to keep it 3 foot?
I wasn't sure if that was, we would prefer to leave it as submitted, but if it was a concern of the board related to the size of it, we just were looking for some guidance on what, if anything, you would prefer to see from a sizing standpoint.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure. You said something, so I wanted to make sure. Any other questions from the board? With that, I think you can have a seat, and we'll open up the public hearing. With that, I'd like to open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to address the board, please come up.
Good evening. My name is Ann Burns, and I live at 199 Bellhurst Drive, and I'm here this evening representing Helping Arundequoit Plan for Progress, the HIP group. We've worked for over 20 years with residents and business owners and government to bring positive change to the Titus Cooper Hudson neighborhood. So we did submit some comments. We appreciate that the Wegman Companies, WCI, is rescuing this property in the Titus Cooper Hudson neighborhood and returning it to productive use. We just had a few comments. We suggested eliminating signs 3 and 7 to limit the visual clutter on the building and on the site in general. That one that faces north that just says storage on it, we would like to suggest that that be eliminated. The U-Haul building, by comparison, at 1106 East Ridge Road, which is a similar use of building, has unlit main sign lettering affixed to the front of the building with 3 very small directional arrow signs to help guide customers to the rear building entrance. The proposed size for the directional signs, numbers 3, 4, and 5, as you know, we were measuring from ground to top of the sign from side to side. So that's how we were measuring the size of the signs. If you compare it to an entrance and an exit sign, which is what we were thinking these should be more like, such as at Wegmans or other establishments where it says enter, exit, those are smaller. Those are about, 2 feet off the ground, 2 feet wide, and that's what we were requesting. Would be similar to that sort of sign. In terms of internally versus externally lit sign, we would still like to see these externally lit. We appreciate that the applicant is willing to turn things off, be dimmable, but based on what everything else has done in the neighborhood, it really does make it more attractive in the neighborhood if things are externally lit. The Aldi's monument sign in front of their building is externally lit. And then we've provided the board with a number of other signs in the neighborhood that are either not lit at all or externally lit. And we just believe that externally lit would be more appropriate for this location, and since the mixed-use commercial code was enacted. And the fact that the existing parking lot lighting that's already there should provide adequate visibility for the building and its purpose. And again, we appreciate WCI investing in Arundecoit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Would you like to respond?
I'd just like to touch on the U-Haul. As you know from the previous renderings of the building facade, their large glazing and internal illumination through that glazing is present on that U-Haul building, giving a lot of visibility to the use of the building regardless of the signage. And in this case, that's not present and sits much further back from the road. So as in anything, signage is very important to the developer and visibility, and we prefer to leave it as submitted as far as the internal illuminance, again with the compromise of the dimming and the off for along the roadway there. Thanks.
Okay. With that, I'll close the public hearing. Anyone on the board have any comments? Questions?
I appreciate the applicant's willingness to dim the signs. I think that's in my personal opinion, that's a pretty good solution and a nice compromise. Again, I'm just one person, but I think that satisfies me. What I do think is that signs 3 and 5, which are the 2 that are up at the eastern end of the parking lot, the wayfinding signs, are a bit redundant. I think the one that's farther back is sign number 4. I understand, because if you're headed that far down, you might go behind the building, which obviously isn't going to get you to the entrance. I think the 2 that are up towards the front of the parking lot are a bit redundant because you can see the office sign from there. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's just my personal opinion. I think that knocks the visual clutter down, as stated by the HIP group, and something that, I don't know they need to be there. So those are my comments.
I kind of agree that there's some clutter here. I don't 100% know which sign or signs I feel are the most appropriate to look at getting rid of or eliminating. I agree with Mr. Evelyn that 3 and 5 I think are a little unnecessary, because at that point you're already in the parking lot and you can see that. I'm also not a huge fan of sign 7 on that side of the building. Again, I think if you're over at the Wegmans portion of the plaza, you can kind of see the front of the building and kind of know where you're heading at that point. So I want to see, I think, some discussion, or see what my fellow board members here think about which signs are maybe the most appropriate to discuss changing or eliminating.
If I said I had nothing to say, I'd be lying. I agree. There's a lot of clutter going on up on Hudson Avenue. In addition, there's already pre-existing Wegman signs already up there for Wayfair signs or wayfinding signs, especially at that entrance. I've never understood sign 7 when they brought it to me, except that it's an advertisement sign. I'm almost on the other side, that I would prefer to see the lights on the buildings go off and the monument sign stay on the Hudson Avenue. That way I'm eliminating all the lights back there, aside from the street lights. But again, that's my opinion. And the signs in the parking lot are sort of really redundant. I don't see anybody coming from the back to enter that area. And one thing on the sign that hasn't been decided on, I would like that to come back to us, just at least for the hours of operation, if nothing else. I don't necessarily think that we should have design on it, but if they're coming back, we can say hello to that sign too. But that's where I'm at on this.
Mr. Huber, anything?
I agree with the rest of the board members that we could probably reduce the number of wayfinding signs, whatever we come to on that, would be part of a discussion. I do think that we should try to stick to our other decisions, or we should try to stick to this idea of having the signage turn off. I don't think it's necessary to have it on after hours, even at a dimmed, because of the amount of lights that are on in the parking lot. I think we could come to some type of a solution there. I know that something that I would kind of throw out there, but not just a thought, is that if they did do external lighting, if they were downcast, gooseneck style, to allow them to leave them on 24 hours, if that's a compromise that they want, because then it wouldn't be giving so much cast. The light wouldn't be going everywhere. But I know that on this side of Hudson Avenue, the external lighting versus internal lighting is kind of touchy because it's a plaza. But if they did want to have them on 24 hours, that might be a compromise, because the light would be more directed at the signage.
I like the idea of the internally lit.
Microphone.
Oh, thank you.
Please read your sign in front of you.
I like the idea of the internally lit sign 1. I'm okay with removing 3 and 5.
Anything else?
That's it.
So I was okay with, I agree with most of what the board said. 3 and 5, I thought if either a reduction and or a removal, so I can go either way on that. I'd like to hear from the applicant regarding some of the other suggestions that were made, so unless there's more comments as a board, I'd like to hear what they had to say about some of those recommendations. And you don't have to say anything, if you don't. Totally your option. the meantime, is there anything else you want to
I was gonna say, I hadn't previously considered it, but, I think it's a good suggestion. Maybe I would prefer to also see the building signage off and the monument sign dimmed. I think that'd be a better option. I mean, that monument sign sits under trees, you know, so if that's lit at 50%, I could see how that would be beneficial, you know, for people driving down the street. The building signage is lit with the parking lot lights,
Yeah, I thought they were all good suggestions.
so.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna have the applicant come back up, we should try to just clarify parking lot lighting, because, you know, I'm assuming the parking lot lighting is pretty much on, and if it is, I agree, I think that's gonna light up the building signage.
So I think as a board, what we're saying is we'd like to see the building go off from midnight to 5. And then the monument sign dimmed at the street for one. Directional, or I don't know which way we're leaning, either removal or reduction, which I can go for either, so,
In 3 and 5?
yeah.
I think they're
They're unnecessary.
wholeheartedly redundant.
Yeah.
I think that's 3, 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so at least you understand what the board's looking at, so if you wouldn't mind commenting. So I know you put some effort into this design, so that's why.
Sure. So I just want to speak to the comment on 7, although it doesn't seem like it's on the board with everyone. Visibility to the north, especially if we're starting to remove wayfinding signage, I think is very important. There is a current painted sign up there for the Stepping Stones head signage on that face of the building. It is somewhat visible from Titus and from the remainder of the,
I believe that's a banner, is it
It's a
not?
banner that's not lit.
it's not lit currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
So we would strongly prefer to keep signage on that north side of the building. The applicant's okay with removing the wayfinding signage for 3 and 5. I think visibility through this area is good. So 3 and 5 we could remove. And if we can keep with the internally illuminated at 50% out at the road, we would be okay with turning the building off from midnight to 5 a.m.
I think that's a pretty good compromise.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
You got that,
We'd have to
Michelle?
know 50% of what, though, right? Because
Well,
then we
that's
can
what I
just turn
asked,
up the
and
building sign.
The applicant wasn't sure at this moment.
We can provide, I mean, it's lumens and how thick the plastic is, and it will not be, we won't pump it up to 200% to get it
Then,
down to
oh, well,
100.
50% of that.
I can provide that to the building department, and you guys can have that available as needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? So who kept good notes? I would like you to make a motion.
I can go ahead and attempt that, Mr. Chair. I believe that for purposes of seeker, this is a type 2 action, so there will be no consideration on seeker. But upon the matter of PB 1903-1, requested by Marathon Engineering acting as agent for the Wegman Company, Inc., for signage approval to install building and freestanding signage on premises 2111 Hudson Avenue in a C Business District, that the board approve the application with the following conditions: that sign 5 and 3 are not approved, that sign, the monument sign, will dim to 50% between the hours of midnight and 5, and I'm good with that if everybody else is.
You
And
said
that
we'll dim 50%.
the monument sign along Hudson Avenue, which I believe in this case is sign 2 on the application, and signs 1, 6, 7 will be extinguished between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m.
6 doesn't need to be listed because it's a non-illuminated sign.
Okay.
You want the second tenant sign included in that for now, or?
I would like to move that the second tenant sign come back to the board for consideration. For hours of operation.
I don't think it's necessary, but I don't know about you guys.
We could put, I mean, we talked at workshop about administrative approval as long as it met the area requirements. We could put a second requirement on that perhaps that said as long as the sign extinguishes 2 hours after, and 1 hour before.
So we don't even know if it's gonna be a lit sign
Right,
at
I'm
this
just
point in
bringing
time.
up a
Right.
So I
discussion
don't-
point to try to make Alan's,
Yeah, so what I'm wondering, and maybe we can ask legal, is can we put, if sign 6 is a lit sign, it needs to come back, because you said you didn't care about design, right? It was just about being extinguished between certain hours.
Right, I mean, we're talking about a 24-hour business right now, and I don't know what's going in there. I mean, unfortunately, they don't either.
Right.
Yeah, you could ask that sign come back to the board for approval, or you could make it just a condition that it meets certain.
I think it only needs to come back if it's a lit sign. is what
Right,
we're
if
trying to
it's
say.
a lit
Am I
sign.
correct? Is that what I'm
yeah,
hearing?
what I was,
Yeah,
what I was trying.
illuminated.
What I was trying to do was give it a additional parameter that, if it was illuminated and it turned off from a certain time, maybe it still didn't need to come back. Cause I think at workshop, we were all okay with the concept of if it meets that, I forget, I think it was 50 square feet or whatever was listed.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the design. I just want to flush this out a little bit with you that if it's a 24-hour business,
Right, I'm saying we
there
would
is
put a
nothing.
condition right now saying that it has to extinguish, say, from 8 to 6 or something.
Or even if we kept it the same, it's relatively close to, I mean, midnight to 5 a.m. is pretty close to to couple hours after the business could close and an hour or so before it would open. It's probably a little bit wider than we've done other times, but it's still reasonably close. I don't want to have them come back again we've already had to come back for this signage. I think that we can cut
Let
them.
me ask a question. I don't know if this ever could be the case, but what if they put an establishment in there that's open till 2 in the morning?
Well, then they could come back.
Okay,
But that's
so-
unlikely, I
I'm
think.
comfortable with it just being an administrative approval. I think the town can dictate the hours.
The town won't dictate. I don't think that they'll dictate
no, they definitely will
turning
not
it
do
off
that.
and on because that's something that we've been doing.
That's why I'm saying if it's a lit sign, I think it just needs to come back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does anybody,
I'm good with that. That was my original proposal.
who's against that? I mean,
I think it's onerous, but
I think
does
so
it
too.
cost money to have to come
I
back?
think
Yeah.
Oh.
I think the important thing is that we maintain, to Brad's point earlier, I think it's important that we maintain our new, status quo that we've set, which is that signs will extinguish and so on at different hours.
Well-
So I think we just need to make sure that happens, and if the only way we can make sure that happens, that we can all comfortably agree that it comes back, then it comes back, because it's important that we do that.
Here's
So
what
let me
I
ask you a
can,
question. If you agree, it can be a staff approval. They'll also have to come to the chairman, which I'll make sure that those things are in place.
Can
It's-
we
I
just
I
put
can,
a
can I
separate
make
condition
can I
that
finish
says
the
that
amendment
the
and see if
second
everybody
tenant-
can agree with this
second-
one?
Let Bradley finish, go first.
Can't we
hold on.
just put a second condition or an additional condition on here that says the second tenant sign just extinguishes 2 hours after and 1 hour, whatever.
Before
like
business
we-
hours?
Yeah, whatever, like we've been doing on all, and then give them let them do whatever.
You could say, but in no manner to be beyond 12 and 5 a.m. or
Sure.
something, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think
Right,
if we
that's-
just carefully
I would like
write
to
what we
put that
need,
in, that-
we can avoid them having to come back.
That if it's an illuminated sign on the second property, Michelle, you still with us? Sign 6. Yeah, sign 6.
Sign
No,
alone.
no, I'm sorry. It would be second tenant sign listed on the application. If the sign's illuminated, it would need to be extinguished 2 hours after closing and maybe reignited 1 hour before
With
opening, with hours of extinguishment being between midnight and 5 under any condition.
So I think that kind of restricts the business. What if the business is open past midnight? I'm just asking.
Then they have to come back and request that we change our rule.
So
Yeah.
why can't we do what Bradley stated, just 2 hours?
well, because
What if it's a 24-hour business,
24-hour
then it never
business?
has to turn off if we don't put some sort of parameter
That's
like
exactly what I was just
okay.
covering.
Just did on CubeSmart.
Yeah, that's what I just did.
there's a loophole there that we're trying to close up.
I'm,
You get that, Michelle?
I'm happy
Second
with that
tenant
wording.
sign listed on the application, if illuminated, will be extinguished 2 hours before?
2 hours after closing
After.
and may be reignited or relit
Relit.
1 hour prior to the opening of business.
To opening.
And not to be illuminated between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was 3. I'm sorry, 4. Is that correct?
Yes,
Others?
that's what I have.
Do I have a second?
Did you get all the conditions? Can you re-go over the conditions?
Michelle, you have them recorded there?
Yeah, I do. I have removal of sign numbers 3 and 5. I have monument sign will dim to 50% between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m., parentheses, sign 2. I have signs 1 and 7 will be non-lit between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. And second tenant sign listed on the application, if illuminated, will be extinguished 2 hours after closing and relit 1 hour prior to opening, and not to be illuminated between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m.
I will second that.
Hold on 1 second.
I just want to clarify in that we're agreeable to those
Can't.
hours.
Yeah, I don't
We have a second
think
tenant
we can allow this.
sign on the monument, and I just want to clarify that that's the building second tenant sign, and that the monument would have the same condition. We have two slots for that second tenant.
But that would be covered under the application
Monument sign with number 2.
number
Yeah,
2.
Yeah, number 2 covers the monument sign in total.
That's why I
And if,
distinguished what you had put before us.
and maybe, I don't know if we need to add
Do
to
you
that
want-
second.
I could add second tenant sign on building.
Yes,
Yes.
I am agreeable to that.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And we have 2 absent.
Yes, I actually got the.
With that, it passes. Thank you. Good, what success with the business.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, case number PB 1903-2. Upon the matter of request by John and Diane Diatalo for revised site plan approval to maintain an existing fencing on premises 4506 Culver Road in a C Business District.
Good evening, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving us a chance to talk about our property at 4506 Culver Road. I am Diane Datalo. This is my husband, John. Based on our feedback that we received from the board members during our workshop, we decided to just construct a possible visual to give you an idea of the improvements that we plan to do on the fencing. John, you need to see it in the middle. If you put it in the middle so everybody can see.
You're okay. You're
Okay.
fine.
It's all treated wood. And we will be staining it so that the new wood and the older wood that was already existing will be one color. There was also an issue about Culver Road. We received an email from Carrie, from Mr. John Raymond of the Department of Transportation. Our posts are not in their right-of-way.
Seaview.
As far as Seaview is concerned, I spoke to Erin McGee before she went on vacation. The Seaview property, the post will be removed.
And there's no application to put those back in?
No, because she gave us certain options, and the post definitely will not be one of them.
And then the east side of the property?
Which one's east side? The one by Shamrock parking lot? Do you mean the one where the Shamrock parking lot is?
Where you're separating the
I would like to
property
keep that
line?
there if possible, only because most people would just drive over to our lot otherwise.
But, excuse me.
There's a tree there and grass. I'm not sure what they're driving over.
This fence will be going up on all sides of all sides except the Seaview side.
You need a mic.
Sorry, we just gotta get you on mic for the
I'm sorry.
audience. We're gonna make you mobile here. Thank you.
John DiTalo, 339 Winona Boulevard.
She introduced you, so
Okay.
you're good. Okay.
We're proposing that this particular fencing go on where the existing fencing is now, on Culver Road, on the back of the parking on the east side, and on the south side of our property. As far as
Seaview.
Seaview is concerned, those posts will be coming out.
Okay.
We would like to do something there, but we're gonna wait to see what you guys want us to do. I mean, because you're the ones that told us not to. We're on the property line, okay?
We haven't made any conclusion yet. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we told you not to
Not
go
to
ahead
do
and
anything.
just keep on
Right, right, right.
constructing.
I
We
think the
didn't say-
testimony was you received some information from the town.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Erin McGee said definitely no posts, but she'll be willing to work with us with stones, with parking curbs, whatever we could use over there. So that part, we've worked with
So-
Public Works,
So for this purposes, you're doing
the three sides.
the three sides?
Yes.
You're not doing the Seaview side? If
Yes.
that answers your question? Yeah, okay.
All right. And then, you know, but I'm sure you received the same copy from Carrie, the email that John Raymond sent us?
Yes.
Okay, so that's also clear.
Is there anything in writing for staff regarding the Seaview portion of the right-of-way?
I believe it was,
Anything to back up the discussion that was had with the applicant in the town?
I can check with Carrie.
Okay.
I will make sure.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I have one question. The mock-up that you built, which, thank you, that's very helpful. Is that the proposed height above grade, or how tall would the post cap, the top of the post cap be at approximately?
That's just to show you what it would look like.
Okay,
My understanding of the code is that it has to be 48 inches from
The ground.
the ground to the top of this.
that's a requirement?
That's the maximum
be up to.
amount he's allowed.
That I'm allowed.
Okay, so you'd like to go to 48?
Yes,
Got it,
correct.
okay,
If we could.
thank you.
On the three sides that we're talking.
Right, gotcha.
Can you just tell me what's going on with the truck that's on their property?
It's my truck.
It's used daily?
It's used for storage. I have a gutter machine inside there, seamless gutter machine. I store aluminum in there.
We're also a collectible store, so sometimes I have to take the big truck. Like if somebody sells me stuff,
So it's used in addition to just storage then?
right?
Okay, so it's actually registered and insured
It's insured, yes.
and can move? Okay.
I can move.
And then the wagon that's back there?
That's a wagon that we use to bring dirt or whatever else we were gonna do back there.
Okay,
That's
I
licensed.
just want to make sure that they're not permanent storage.
No, that particular wagon is movable. It's not licensed at this particular time, okay? But it is being fixed and gonna be moved out of there.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
No.
I do have a question for staff, if you're ready, Michelle. So, I heard the testimony of what the applicant wants to do, but all I see is, I don't see it written.
Right.
So.
I don't either.
I haven't seen that before. so help me. That they only want to do 3 sides, and what it looks like and how high it's going to be.
We don't have any revised plans, is what
Yeah.
he's saying. Okay. Okay.
We weren't asked to bring one. They just said,
I get it, so that's
I
why
would
I'm
have
asking
brought
for
it otherwise.
clarification. So we still have the original application in front of us. We don't have a revised application. I think I'm hearing the board's pretty much okay with what they want to do. How do we administratively do this to ensure that it is what they said, since we don't have something written?
It's on record.
And, I mean, you can make sure that in your conditions that you're very clear about what you're approving. You wouldn't just approve it as applied.
I just haven't seen it done this way.
I know that the main reason that you wanted this was because you were having vehicles and pedestrians and people using your parking lot when you didn't want them to be. So, I know that you're hitting some roadblocks with what you want to do on the north side of this parking lot. And I'm worried that without this going all the way around, that the purpose for us, the whole shebang is not being, I mean, it's the, so, I worry that we're not looking at the whole thing, right? Because if we know that you're going to do something probably in the future on that north side, and it would be nice to figure out what that is going to be so that we could look at it all as a holistic application. So what I worry about is that we approve you to do this, and you go and you spend the time, effort, and money on building this in the front, and then something unbeknownst, and it changes everything, right? And then you're back to square one and have to change more than you thought you were going to change. That's just a concern that I have on your behalf.
I think it's a valid one. How long do they have, Michelle, before they lose the right to do what they asked before? Is it a year? I can't remember.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
What's the question?
How
Yeah,
long do they
no,
have,
that's-
how long is this application good for to do these things that we might grant? Is it 1 year?
I can double check. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll take a look.
If
Carrie
the-
always.
Wait. Bernie, if I'm understanding the question, if the application is approved tonight as is,
Yes.
how long do they have to act on that? It's a
Correct.
1-year window with a possibility of a ministerial extension.
Right. That's what I thought.
Okay.
But my question is, you feel you're gonna get some type of, and I was trying to mitigate what you brought up. You feel you're gonna get more information from the town on what you can do on the Seaview side. I think the recommendation is, from what you're saying, is if we approve this, you may wanna know the whole picture. I don't know if what they're doing on that side has to come before the board if they get permission.
Aaron already
Stone.
gave me permission to put a parking curb there.
That's what.
See, this
Or
is the
the
part that
stone.
I asked for communication
Or the
between
stone.
the applicant
Let her
and the
finish
town.
this. Yeah.
Or the stone, or to do nothing at all on that side. So those are my 3 options as far as Erin is concerned. And we spoke to this Friday before she went on vacation, and she was supposed to tell you guys.
There is a draft memo through the email that in regard to the application for the fence on the property around 4506 Culver Road, the current fence posts along Seaview Drive are within the town right-of-way and need to be removed or located back on the private property. I met with the owners on March 15th and discussed with them the town stipulations as follows. Any object placed in the right-of-way must be removable and unanchored to the ground. Also, the owner must allow for snow storage and have no obstructions to the town snow plowing efforts in the right-of-way. From Aaron McGee.
So, I mean, if they're going to work out something with town staff and DPW on an item like that, if it's out of the right-of-way, we cannot, I mean, we don't have any jurisdiction, we don't have any approval.
Well, if they put in a fence, we definitely do, because fencing
Well, they-
on commercial
they
We
property.
already said we
can't-
weren't fencing that
they
side
can't
of Seaview.
Said they
Putting a
can't
fence.
put a fence is what.
Aaron
Oh,
had made it
that's-
clear.
Yes.
That's not what was just read to me.
The
What
first
was read
things.
to me, that was those fence posts could be moved onto their property, right?
Correct. They would have
Yes.
to be put on their private property. Cannot be in the right, the fence posts cannot be in the right of way.
Right, you can't build anything in the right of way.
Right.
So they can build a fence if it's on their property.
Okay, and do you,
is
and
what
do you
we're
have,
being
do you
told.
have, if their option was to move their fence post back to the property line, like they're proposing on the other three sides, would you have a problem with them doing that?
Well, I'm gonna go back to Bernie's point that he made to begin with. We don't see a new application in front of us, so I don't even know what they wanna do. Do you wanna tell them what they're gonna do?
Well, if we're trying to work through this tonight, then the answer to that question is yes.
So
Right.
you wanna impose what they're gonna do?
With conditions.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking the question, because
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable that we don't have the final.
Yeah,
Right,
I
I am too.
believe, and I would request that the applicant answer this question, but I believe that's what the applicant is looking from us tonight, is some help and some guidance to work through this, and to have some imposition, if you will, as to what is allowed on that property line. And the only thing we could theoretically allow, and we need to discuss this, is if town DPW staff says, you know, obviously they can't be in the right of way, but if they want to move them back to their property line and install a fence, that is something we could theoretically approve tonight if we wanted to. That's the only thing we can really approve.
Well, we can remove the posts and make
That
them
has
come
to happen,
back,
period.
and make them come back.
Which
I
they
agree
wouldn't.
they
with
wanna-
you. I think that that's the best solution because it addresses the need that the applicant said that they desired. My concern is that if we do move those fence posts back onto the property line, it's going to affect the site plan because the parking spaces are not going to be able to be in the same arrangement in which they are now. So then this becomes something more than I think the applicant is applying for. Right?
I'm gonna go out on a
Yes.
limb here and say they don't want to put.
becomes open.
They can nod their heads yes at this, but I don't think they want to put their fence posts in the middle of their parking spots.
Correct.
No, it doesn't make sense to put it there, I'm sorry.
So
Said
it,
that at the workshop. too,
yeah. So I
Thank
think
you.
and don't let me speak for you if I misstep
sure.
here. Please mention. I think they have let the fence along Seaview Avenue go. I don't think that's a thing that they want to do. I understand it's on the plans. I know.
Here's what I'm saying to you, it's on the plan, and it's now in a memo that was just read to me, so they do have some.
Right, so, but we can still
Tacit-
condition anything we want and just condition that no fence is allowed along Seaview.
Right.
Unless it comes back to the board.
So let me just get some clarification from the applicants. The issue we have is, you haven't clearly stated in writing what you want to do, so we'd have to do it in motions if you really are looking for a decision tonight,
Yes.
which I think the majority of the board is willing to do that from what I hear. The other option is to put it more in writing, and once you get a little bit more information from the town, then we'd have the full picture so that you fully know what you can do or not. This is an option. Just want to understand. And if you really are looking for a decision tonight, I believe we can do it with conditions.
Well, we're looking for it tonight.
It's just been dragging on since October. It takes a lot of time and energy. My information from the town is pretty much clear. The Culver Road, according to Mr. John Rabun, said it's not in their way. Aaron McGee said, get rid of the post, and John and I have agreed to take that out. I don't know what other information you will need.
See, you're missing the point. The point is, we are gonna have to put it in writing, but in the future, we're gonna want a fence around the whole property to coincide with this, okay? So they're asking us whether or not.
I'm sorry, sir, could you use the microphone?
I'm sorry. I talk
Thank
with
you,
my hands.
thank you.
Talk with my hands, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I would like to have the fence all the way around. And I understand not having the fence now and coming back to the board. That brings us back to the board again.
Right.
And then we're gonna have to look at it. And the survey that we had done says that we're so many inches from this side, so many inches from this side. And if we brought it like this, whatever the survey map said, to bring it, it can't be a straight line, but it could be here and come like this, and we would have the ability to put up a fence.
If we decide to.
and it would be on our property.
We could all, I'm just want to make sure you understand the options. We could table it for you so that you could think through this a little bit more and come back with exact in writing what you want to do. It's just one more cycle of a meeting. If that works, I don't know what your plans are.
And nothing for you changes as it currently exists.
Say again? Nothing changes as it currently exists?
Right. You
That-
would just come back with a finalized plan as to what you would like to do.
Have we not been clear here?
Because we're getting two different messages. She's telling us she doesn't care that the fence goes in, that's,
Well,
We are asking for permission to have the fence in Culver Road by my neighbor's side and the backside, which abuts with Shamrock. So that's the permission we're trying to get today.
But if we don't put anything on the Seaview side and leave it like it is right now,
you're not going to leave it as it is tonight if we
No,
come to a decision.
let me finish, please. If we don't put anything on the Seaview side and we pull those posts out, all right, somebody is gonna end up driving off that into whatever's over there. And I got a feeling that somebody's going to be either suing me or the town for what happens. Because those posts stop people from driving off of there. And that's my biggest concern. And again, I want the place to look nice.
Yeah, I think we're all saying sort of the same thing, and let me just try to state it again. Since you didn't bring exact plans of what you want to do tonight, we'd have to move forward with some conditions to do what you want to do. If in fact you think there's more you want to do, and you just want to give it some more thought, we could table it. It would save you the cost of another application, and you could come back with the full picture of what your options are once you get more information from the town of what you want to do. We're hearing two different things, and I'm just trying to make sure you understand the options so that
My
you don't
wife-
leave here.
My wife wants to go for the 3 sides. I deterred her.
I hear everything, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we would like to have the 3 sites approved based on the design that we have here. And then on the public works side, we will have to put something up there, but it's more Aryan side of the,
Possibly, I mean,
which is what she gave, yes.
Well,
yeah, but-
if it were something that you worked out with DPW that was within the right of way, if they allowed you to put, say, some
Curbs.
boulders or curb
Yes,
stops or
she gave us
something.
options, and she said maybe not put anything at all, but
Right, if
She was
that
clear.
was what was decided,
yes.
my understanding, and I'll caveat this with letting the attorney correct me if I'm wrong, but if that was worked out with DPW, that would be acceptable and it would not have to come back to this board because that would be that would be in the right of way. However, if you decided that you wanted to put a fence back up on your property, it would need to come back to this board.
We'd have to come back to you again.
Yes.
That's fair.
Because they would change the parking layout internally
Exactly.
and your drive lanes wouldn't work anymore.
Yes, yes, exactly.
That's all we're saying. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
right, and only because we heard a couple different things, wanted to make sure you knew your options
Okay,
before we proceeded.
fine, fine.
Does not having the barrier on the Seaview side make the site more dangerous because I could see how someone in a vehicle could think that they could enter the parking lot from that side.
They probably actually could. I've walked it several times. I mean, there's nothing to really stop you
It
from
sounds like
going
they
on.
are right now.
Yeah, I mean,
So, and I know that that is most likely the most advantageous side of the parking lot to use illegally because of that's most of the problem, right? That side. And I worry that with the fence going up, if we approve with the fence going up in the front and they shut off the actual access, right? Then if someone is going to choose to park there illegally, they're going to go up over the curb or over the
there's no
drop
curb,
off on
there's
the
nothing, yeah.
there is on this part right here. And then they can access Seaview from anywhere versus having a designated entrance and exit. So although the chain and fence right now is not compliant with their site plan, by removing it, which they have to do, right, and not putting something else in the place to protect that, doesn't it make the site a little more unsafe?
It sounds to me like they're gonna put something there, but it's not something that's
Permanent.
currently in our purview, right?
Right, and I guess my
Town's gonna make that decision.
and my response to you, Brad, would be that we can't make them put anything there in the first place. So whether it makes it slightly more unsafe to use, I mean, we can't force them to put a fence on any of their property lines.
Actually, they're back here because they did
Well,
something not
Correct.
compliant.
If we were looking at this for site plan review right now, we wouldn't allow the parking lot the way it is because
Agreed,
it would be
right.
unsafe. So, I mean, I don't think that that's a strong argument because they're here because it's not the way it's supposed to be in the first place. If it were, right, so if it were the way that it was supposed to be right now, I wouldn't have any issue because there would be grass there. And people would know not to drive. I mean, it would be an impediment to driving across there. Not that it would keep people from driving across there, but it would be clear.
I'm not sure I'm totally following
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I-
I don't know that I necessarily agree with where you're coming from. I understand what you're saying.
Can I go back to the applicant about the entrance on Culver Road? Because right now that's chained off. It's got two bollards on it on either side with a chain. Is that a permanent solution there? What is that?
When we bought the property, those posts were already there.
And you already had a chain already across
Yes,
there?
the Sam Butera actually had it there for opening and closing when the business was closed, yes.
And that took care of the problem?
No, it did not, because we had parking curbs all over the place and they just drove over it. That's why John decided when it was time to replace them, we would go with something higher, which, like I told you guys last time, it actually helped with the deterrence of people vandalizing and crossing over.
And, okay, so that you'd like to keep as is? I'm not real crazy about as is, to be honest with you. One of the bollards is bent over.
Oh, somebody just hit that, this,
Yeah,
Kids go by there, the kids that we would like to keep out of the parking lot, go by there from Seabreeze and from walking around, and they break it. That's been broken.
we
every
constantly-
those
time.
kids are not breaking that bollard.
no, they get hit.
They did not bend that bollard.
The white one that
You
was,
talking about the one that bent over?
yes,
Yes.
the one that got hit.
That came about from an individual that was coming on, from, during the St. Patrick's Day, at, Camp Eastman, okay, to come to Shamrock Jacks. He was coming when the bridge was open or coming from Seabreeze. I'm not sure where he was coming from, but he went to turn into Seaview Drive, and he hit the chain and demolished the front of his truck
I would
and,
bet.
and pushed it over. And
So
I-
here's my question. That's in a state of disrepair. Are we repairing
We haven't done
that?
anything yet because we're waiting for the rest of, it's like we fixed the fence and then that's part of it as well.
So I think just for clarification's sake, Alan asked, what is your plans for what's there currently? Is it to put it back?
Yes, they're gonna go up straight. I'm gonna dig it out, pull it out,
Okay.
put it back in there. There's electricity there, okay, that goes to the lamps. That's gonna be rehooked up because it can be shut on and off from inside the building. We usually put those on, but since they broke it, we don't do it anymore,
So if we put in our conditions that you're gonna keep what would you call that?
Those are bollards, two bollards that,
The two bollards with the chain to limit access as is. You don't have an issue with that at this point? That's what they plan on doing. So I think what I'm hearing from the applicant, I just want to be clear, is you're here before us to put a fence that's visually is going to look similar to that of within the allowable height on three sides of the property, and that's what you're asking for. And,
Yes.
and you do know you have other options, but that's what you choose to do tonight.
That's what she wants and that's what she gets.
I hear you. Okay. Am I missing anything on that?
I think you've got it.
Okay. So based on that, if you don't mind, unless the board has any other
I
questions.
have is there any access for pedestrians aside from the sidewalk you're gonna shut off? Because right now there are broken spots in the chain, right?
Those broken spots occurred.
I don't care how they happen.
Okay.
What I'm asking is, are we going to allow?
We are not allowing pedestrian walks.
So you're gonna shut the whole
Yes,
property?
because
will
my
no
insurance
longer
does
be-
not allow me a lot of leeway if somebody comes there and trips when my business is closed.
So if your customers wanna come in,
They have to come to the front like they all know what to do. My customers have no problem going in and out. It's the people that aren't buying from me that just want to take a shortcut.
Yeah, so if a customer wants to come to walk there during open operable business hours.
Chains down.
The chain's down.
Yeah, they walk
They're
down the
walking through
sidewalk.
Yes.
and
The chain's
come
down.
through the
Yes.
drive
curb cut.
lane.
Yeah,
Yes, or they can drive through there, yes.
Just-
yeah.
I'm responding, yep.
Thank you.
The chain will be down. We unlock
Right.
that every day, and when
Yeah.
when we're not there, or even sometimes when we are there,
So if they're walking there, they can walk through the drive lane to get in.
Yes, if you're a customer and it's 11 to 4 or Melissa's is 10 to 7, yes, you have access to our place.
I'm through, Mr. Chair, with questions.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, if you don't mind having a seat, I just need to open up the public hearing.
All right.
I'll leave this here for you.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
I'll take that home with you if you want.
I'd like to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address? Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening, folks. Carl Eberhardt, 4500 Culver Road. I came here to this meeting because I haven't seen neighbors in a while, and I wanted to see what they were proposing. And I guess my only concern is, I guess on the south side, up against my property, is that if they get the approval for the fence, that they don't dig up my flower bed. So, as long as they're careful over there, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, thank you. And hold on. Is there anybody else who would like to, anything else?
I don't think so, no.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board? With that, is there anything you would like to respond to that came up in the public hearing?
We're not proposing to put a fence where his flower beds are. There's already a chain link fence from where the current fence with the little bit of chain is there to the back of the building, to the back of the property line. So all we're going to be doing is putting this fence where the current posts are and replacing it with this, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Please keep it to the board. Sorry, that's the rules.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Anything else?
I guess I have a quick question. Are you going to be removing that chain link fence?
No.
No, that remains.
That was grandfathered in when we bought the place, it was already there.
Why would I?
Yeah, from the front corner of the building there. See, it says post .2 feet. From there towards Culver Road is where they're proposing this fence that we're approving tonight. From there to the back of the property is already there, that chain link.
I see it, okay. My apologies.
Any other questions?
I think you're good. Anything else, anybody? Did that clarify it for you? Yeah. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Does the board have any other questions?
I just want to thank these folks for going through this. I appreciate your time. I know that this seems like a lot of hassle for a fence, and we just really want to make sure that you get what you're looking for. So thank you for your patience.
And I guess the one lesson is next time, come here first, so we don't go through this. Got it. Okay. Having said that, the first one for seeker, I need a motion. It is a type 2.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
No action.
But do we have to go through the motion at all?
No.
Okay.
Say
Do I have a motion for, and by the way, when you do discuss the project, you only have to state the case. You don't have to read through the whole description again. We were told that at the last meeting.
Oh.
Yeah. Do I have a motion?
I'm gonna take a shot at it. In regards to, case PB 1903-2, I believe we are approving the, sample fence as provided at tonight's meeting at a height, of 48 inches from grade along.
Up to 48, right?
Up to 48 inches, well, okay, up to 48 inches from grade, along the east, south, and west property lines. And the removal of the wooden fence along the north property line along Seaview Avenue.
I would say removal of all post. And then on the west side of the property line, there's going to be the bollard situation that we want dealt with.
Okay.
And that fence will not be extending, I don't believe, beyond the southernmost bollard.
Correct, which I believe is shown on the plans.
Yeah. So that means the fence will not be extending at all beyond the second bollard.
Okay.
So, Mr.
Or
Evelyn,
the north.
let me go back to, so we keep it all in one place. So you're approving the sample fence up to 48 inches from grade along the east, south, and west property lines. Removal of all posts and chains from the north side. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the other.
And then I believe Alan mentioned that there's a bollard that needs to be corrected at the entrance. And I'm not really sure where you were going, Alan. There's two planters with lights on these plans here, right? There's
Yep.
one to the south and there's one to the north. You're saying the fence is going to stop at that southern planter. It will not extend across the drive opening, is what you're saying, or like the curb cut.
That, my understanding is where the chain is going.
So the bollards and the chain are gonna remain as is.
Right. And
Well, no, we want the bollard fixed.
Well, yes, I got that, but I mean.
Okay,
they're going to remain there, but what you're saying is the fence isn't going to extend across the opening
right.
where the chain and bollards currently are.
And I don't want permission for that to happen at the moment.
So
Yeah, it's a curb cut.
You wanna, the vehicle ingress and egress will remain on Culver Road.
Correct.
I thought that was kind of a taken. but I
Well,
guess-
except that the west side of the property line was, we were approving a fence over there, and I wanted to make it clear that at that southern bollard, I wanted it stopped.
I see. Because I just said the west property line. Right. Okay.
So I have the bollard at the entrance to be fixed. I don't have anything about the bollard on the south, so what did you want?
He's saying that that's where the fence needs to stop. The fence cannot go across the
On the
curb
west side
cut.
of the property,
So,
I'm
and
not
I'm
following.
not saying that they're going to do that, I just,
no, I'm not even concerned about the curb cut. I mean,
Okay.
I guess so the bollard at the north end of the curb cut, right? Are you with me?
is damaged, right?
Okay, fine. So from the north bollard to the northwest corner of the property. Are you with me?
Yep.
I am.
So you're saying that they cannot fence in that, whatever that is, 10 feet beyond where their curb cut is for some reason?
I would suggest that we establish the property line there before we allow anything else to happen.
I'm lost now, guys. Sorry.
I'm not even sure how, do you know how far that is from the bollard to the property line?
Does it matter?
Isn't the sign
The
there?
fencing is, if the fencing is on their property and we're approving the fencing, why does it matter if it's 1 foot or
Sign
30
there.
feet?
What don't we see defined?
Because I don't know how far that 30 feet extends north, and neither do they, because right now they're in a right-of-way, because they're using right-of-way property as their own and have
Right, but you could
traditionally
make
been
that
doing
same argument about any of the other corners where it's hitting property lines. I don't understand why that's any different.
Except that the other property lines have already been established by the fact that other properties are there.
I think we know where the property line is. It's just that the fence is over it. That the fence just
Right.
needs to be
Right,
moved
I'm
back.
not worried about the fence that's over it. I'm just, what,
Yeah, I think
what we're
that they
saying
should
is
put
we,
a piece of fence on that
I
other
agree.
side to
I think so
finish it
too.
off. Yeah.
and then if they ever do get a revised site plan to fence the northern edge along Seaview, it would close the property. Otherwise, it's not gonna close the property. If we don't
Right,
allow
it
a
could
piece
be
of
approved
fence.
all at one time.
We're beyond that at this point, so
But what if they don't, I don't know.
If I were to,
this is your motion, Mr. Yulin, so
Yeah.
tell me what you would like.
goodness, if I were to describe this approval as saying along the entirety of the western property line, well, no, I'm not gonna say that, along the western property line with no new fencing in between the existing bollards.
Yeah,
Is that okay? That way you get that little piece of fence to the north, and I think that's, I think that that's appropriate. But no fencing in between the bollards, which is not their intention, but we can put on paper.
lots of things
Yeah,
that we have.
so
to put on.
approving the sample fence up to 48 inches from grade, and then we had before along the east, south, and west property lines, removal, I'm sorry, that's where you would add something different, so.
And then I would, so along the east, south, and west property lines,
Yep,
with no fencing in between the existing bollards on the western property line.
Besides, like a chain.
Besides, yeah, but we're,
I'm.
no new fencing. And do we need to mention something about not removing the chain link?
No,
Okay,
because if they did and they put that other fence up and it was on their property,
fine,
fine,
okay,
right?
yep, and removal of anything along the north property line, any fence, posts, or chain along the north property.
removal of all posts and chains from the north side, that's what I have.
On your last piece there about removal?
Yeah.
Can we just add the small note that if a fence is ever proposed on the north property line, it must come back to this board?
I would love if we add that.
Thank you.
Any future fence on the north side,
Should you leave that? Should it be a little more broad?
broader than the north side, I'm sorry.
Just like, I mean, what if they're like, we want to put boulders there, but they're in our, we want to put.
I think
No,
really,
I think that they can do whatever they want to with, ministerially, that would be allowed, that without our
Without
input
our-
at all.
Yeah, and if they were to put something along the north property line at a later date, they would have to come back anyway.
I mean, think how nice a
Right.
privet hedge would be right there, and we wouldn't have to have any word on that.
So I don't know if we need to include that actually, right? That they come back to us.
I was just trying to make sure it was very clear.
If it's a fence, they have to, by code, come back to
That's all.
us.
Okay.
Is the only reason that they're here now because
only-
of the right of way thing? I mean, if they just wanted to put up a fence, would they have had
No,
to come
they
to
would
us?
have to come back to us because it's a commercial property. And code requires commercial properties to have town, planning board approval
Okay.
for a fence.
Okay, then we
the
don't
one
need
thing-
my motion, my
Okay.
addition.
The one thing I do want to ask Mr. Evelyn, if he would mind amending it, would be to use the materials as presented at the hearing, since there's no materials listed in the application.
I believe I mentioned that at the beginning.
yeah, he said approving the sample fence up to 48 inches from grade. Did you want some words added to that? I mean,
As presented at the hearing.
Yeah,
sure.
that's what I had added at the beginning, but
Okay.
add it to the paper.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those approved, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstains, 2 absent. Good luck and hopefully you get everything you need. Thank you.
That was all.
We have some other things that were added to the agenda.
So next item on the agenda is a town board referral upon the matter of request by James M. Flamia for a special use permit to maintain an existing two-family dwelling on premises 2991 Culver Road in a C business district.
Would you like me to give a little explanation about this
Just
one?
going to ask, thank you.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello, greetings. How are you, folks?
Good.
I apologize for my unexpected absence, or late arrival, as the case may be now.
We knew, we're fine.
Okay, great.
You're excused.
So this application is before the town board. The property is located in a C business district. It's been converted, already to a two-family. And when the town discovered this through code enforcement, we determined that it could not be a two-family without the special use permit.
So it was converted to a two-family illegally?
It was.
Okay.
And so now retroactively letting in order to satisfy or close out the code enforcement action, they're going through the proper, or they're going through the process of obtaining the required permit. And so they are before the town board. They've submitted the floor plan of what's there. It is to have, 2 units, one on the first floor, another second unit on the, second story of the building. It was originally converted, I think, years ago for what was at the time family occupants, and so now that's no longer the case. But either way, the property needs the special use permit. So just looking at the use, so the application you should have before you shows the floor plan layout of the building and the site as well. This will be subject to a public hearing at regular April town board meeting.
So any neighbors would have a chance at that point in
Correct.
time?
Yeah, there'll be a public hearing for the actual special use permit at the town board level. So this board is only being asked to look at the use and its proximity to, in the location where it is, similar to other special use permits that you've considered.
I want to mention that I'm okay with it being a two-family home, I think. I don't see a problem with it. I do have a little bit of concern with the basement plan that was been presented here that shows
Is that
a meeting
existing?
room.
Yeah, so the town board is certainly going to be taking a look at that, and it's only intended to be a 2-unit occupancy, and if that would be one of the issues or the conditions that the town board would be looking at with respect to the application before them. So the application before us, or before the town board is, for a 2-unit multifamily dwelling in a C business, which requires a special use permit. I believe that the town board would be very specific in addressing what exactly they're approving if they were to in fact approve the special use permit.
But he is asking for a basement apartment in this application, or
It's not
a
an
basement
apartment, it's an office.
Yeah, that's something the town board will take a look at. I mean, certainly
Nothing we should consider tonight, even though it's on his application.
well, and it's also a
Thinking, he didn't say.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
yeah, so,
I mean,
That
I'm thinking
changes a
about
lot of
going
stuff.
home after this, but
so I think that it would, if, I'm trying to,
I just don't know what, I'm looking for advice, I guess.
yeah, so,
I'm trying to understand what I mean, it's a town
No, I'm
board
trying to-
referral for
yeah.
the special use permit to allow a two-family house, but they're showing us that they want to possibly put an office in it.
yes.
So now we have a potential 3-tenant building. Being 2 residential, 1 commercial in a commercial district.
So it's already, a special use permit is granting an exception to the code for the area. So we're already granting an exception for 2-family, and then we're granting another exception for the,
It's not an exception, so in the C Business District, multifamily is a permitted use.
Okay.
It just needs the permission of the town board to be allowed. So it's a special use permit. So those are things that the zoning code has said, these are permitted uses in this area, but the special use permit allows an extra level of looking to make sure that the use fits the location and it makes sense where they're being proposed. So I think that's really the difference. It's not allowed by right. It requires that extra review by the town board. So it's not an exception, because that would be a zoning board.
So would the board be looking for our input on the two-family and not the office?
Well, I would say that if you have thoughts or issues or concerns about the office, this is certainly the time and place to share that. So if the two-family, this is the right time to discuss that. So if that lower level, I will tell you that I don't know if the lower level can meet code requirement with respect to being a legal occupancy. So that's another thing that the town board will seek guidance from our fire marshal and building inspector as to whether or not that can legally be occupied as occupiable space.
Carrie, does the town typically interpret a home office as being a separate use?
A home office, meaning like a home occupation, the owner of the property does not reside at this location. And so, I'm sorry?
His family does, if I'm reading this correct. His immediate family.
I think that used to be the case. I don't know that that's currently the case.
The letter said that his daughter lives there, does it not?
In Nashville.
I think,
And my youngest daughter remained, and I rented out the other apartment.
yeah, I don't know if that's still again, the applicant at the public for the special use permit hearing, to be honest with you, from a special use permit standpoint, the who is there doesn't necessarily matter. It's
It does matter to Dan's question of how the code tends to look at.
right, but she's
use.
not the owner of the property.
Understood, but from a bill, because I was gonna kind of, I guess maybe respond or answer part of your question. I'm not answering the town code portion of it. The building code looks at it very black and white. You can have a live-work unit, and in a live-work unit, you're allowed, I don't remember the exact number, 10%, 20% of the square footage as a home business. However, it is a live-work unit, meaning that the person does have to live there. So a third-party business would not be allowed, to my understanding,
As a home occupation.
from the building code
Although that
standpoint.
wouldn't necessarily have to be the owner of the property if it was a tenant that
Correct.
also had a.
That's correct. I would agree with that, yes.
Right, the other thing is that from a functional, like whether that lower level is even occupiable from a occupancy building code standpoint, I don't know that that's been determined.
So Carrie, as I reread this letter again, he is asking for, he says, I request that the finished basement of this property be allowed to be remodeled into my private office for myself.
Yeah, so then what I would, just use your microphone, I think Michelle is, so then if the board should
That better?
consider the full, when the applicant was asked to come to the board, it was to remedy the fact that there was a two-family structure happening there. So if there are concerns about that lower level or the occupancy thereof, certainly this board should make that comment to the town board.
So if the board so choose to make a positive or a negative, they could put some other words.
You can
around
put some
it.
other things, so this board's done that in the past where the referrals said one way or the other, and then asked the town board to consider certain things in their deliberation of the special use permit. So certainly that's appropriate for this board to do.
So I'm just curious as to, I've seen some of these type of cases before the zoning board before. Why is this before the planning board? Just for
So,
clarity.
This,
I remember at Portland Avenue, there was a home that was a single use used by family members for years, and they wanted to convert it to a double, and it wasn't listed as a double, and,
it would have been to grant a use variance.
sorry?
So it would have been to grant a use variance, because in the zoning district that they were in, would have been likely a residential district, and the only way to allow more than one dwelling in a single structure would be to have a use variance granted. So here, the underlying zoning allows multifamily or
the zoning
mixed
already allows
use
it.
development,
Okay. I get
but the special use permit's required.
Thank you for the clarification.
I also have
No.
a question kind of along those lines. I see the applicant has gone into a lot of effort outlining the costs of maintaining the property. I know that sometimes in zoning board, they will consider
Yeah.
financial hardship. Is
That's
that-
not something this board has to
so
weigh
this
in.
is-
I think this applicant might have been confusing sort of
Okay.
the information that was required to be considered. So in a special use permit,
you don't have to demonstrate, you're not seeking relief from the code, so you don't need to demonstrate hardship, or he was just using it to make his case for why he hopes the board would find in his favor and grant the
But
approval.
we don't need to.
We don't need to take it-
We
that's-
don't need
No.
to take into account.
And I'll defer to the deputy town attorney, but hardship doesn't come into play, and this is purely a decision based on the use itself and your level, your determination or your referral to the town board as to how you think this use fits in with the area and how it works, functionally. That's what typically the planning board's role is when it comes to the special use permit.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that would be a relevant consideration, actually,
Right.
because you're really supposed to be looking at how it fits in with the neighborhood, and not this particular applicant's
Yeah,
financial
that makes sense
hardship.
to me. I just saw it on the paper and
That's what made me think actually of those other cases.
yes,
is when I saw the
exactly.
financials.
Yes.
I'm ready. Okay. Any other
It just says town board, sorry.
special use permits? Right. I get it.
I'd like to make a motion if we are ready to do that.
It's not a motion, actually, it's just a positive or negative, correct?
Well, it would be in form of
Do
a
the motion
motion.
to,
Make a positive or a negative?
correct, yep.
You may do that.
For a special use permit to maintain an existing two-family dwelling on premises 2991 Culver Road in a C business district. I would recommend, based on the fact that it's already been used for the past 17 years
15.
as a,
15 years, just for correction. It was converted to
he's
a
owned
double
it 15 years ago, sorry.
17 years he owned
Alan?
it, 15 years is a double.
I'm sorry. Before you do that, I do have a question. This came up because of an issue with code compliance. So I think you were gonna say, well, it's been fine for 17 years and no one has said anything. Somebody must have said something for it to get here, right? So someone must be unhappy.
So, complaints are anonymous.
Right.
So I will start off with that. And it was brought to our attention that there was more than one tenant and the property wasn't on the rental registry, and then we determined, based on a further analysis, that there were in fact 2 units, in the building, and so it wasn't necessarily, it was I'm hard pressed to give you the details
Sure.
because if I give you the details, anonymity might go out the window.
Sure.
So I do apologize.
Tell us.
Okay. So I do apologize, but it did stem from a code enforcement action, and typically with code enforcement, the end game or the end goal is to seek compliance with the code. And in this case, this special use permit is one of the things that's needed in order to obtain that compliance.
I
We're
only
almost-
bring that up because
For almost 15 years, this property has existed without complaint.
I mean, I think it's a valid point, right? Because we're going to say that it fits in, but somebody over there is saying that for whatever reasons, I don't know.
But there will
I
be a
think it's-
public hearing.
I will provide that it was not an external complaint,
Okay,
if that makes any sense or helps.
so it came from within the building.
I don't know that, but I would like to go ahead and make a recommendation to the town board that we send it back to them with a positive referral, less the basement, which I would say that without any additional information, we wouldn't consider as part of a referral.
Or just clarification that we're not giving a positive on the office until more information, or
Right.
what's the best way to say it?
Yeah, I think the way you said it was best, that your board's not, providing a recommendation on the proposed basement as shown in the drawings.
I think we can just say it that way, that's enough, right?
Yep, that's great amendment.
It's not including the basement office. As part of this request. As part of this motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No abstains, and 2 absent. was interesting. What's the next one?
Oh, sorry.
Next item is another referral, proposed local law regarding the text amendment to the Arundecoit Town Code, Chapter 235 XXII, Regulation of Telecommunications.
And I have to step down for this one because I have a conflict of interest.
What?
Make sure we do that right.
Watch out, I'm on my own now. That's, look.
Oh. Carrie's on her own, and we've got code printed out in front of us. We're gonna be here for a while.
No, yes. Sit down while I tell you a story about, no, I'm kidding. So the amendment, that's been proposed for the telecommunications portion of, the town code, more specifically the zoning code, is intended to bring our local code into conformance with the recently issued FCC order as it relates to small cell or microcell telecommunications facility, which has really required that towns make the process as streamlined and as efficient as possible. As you may recall, prior to this FCC order and based on our current or past code, there wasn't really any means for administrative review of these kinds of projects, and so we had no choice but to walk them through. And so most of the code amendments are related around adding the small cell definition, adding the project or review process around that, around the small cell. I will note that so there is a new section regarding administrative review that outlines the types and of telecommunications applications that can be reviewed administratively. You'll notice in item 235-129A, there is a change there to indicate that standard towers, in other words, the traditional towers that we think of on the water tower or freestanding towers, that if equipment changes are occurring in those places and they were previously approved, that those could be handled administratively. There really wasn't a provision in our code that would functionally allow that, and so it doesn't, from a processing standpoint, that really makes a lot of sense to have that capability. And then the remainder of this section is really talking about the wireless microcell. You'll notice that I'm just catching a mistake. I do apologize. There is a numbering error that I will correct. 235, 129, microcell locations requiring site plan. That should be 235, 130. I do apologize for not catching that. So that one indicates the times and places where site plan approval would be required, and that would be new right-of-way locations or new microcell locations.
I'm sorry, Carrie, you lost me there. So,
Right here.
235-129.
Right.
If you look at, right here.
Oh,
That should be
that's right, I missed
130.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I do apologize for that. So that does, so this way that it's not that, so if an applicant were to come forward and they wanted to propose a new freestanding small cell in a right-of-way location that was not the current site of an existing utility pole or something else that a microcell antenna could be affixed to, then that would be subject to site plan approval. But again, mostly the code update is really to bring the town into conformance with the FCC order.
So can I just ask for my own clarity? So there's a cell tower behind here.
Correct.
This way. If you were gonna add a micro cell tower to that, it wouldn't have to come before here.
It would not have to come because it's going onto a location that already has accommodate cell, and there's provisions in here, and certain provisions in here that sort of provide a cap for where the administrative would end. So if you
It might have to come back depending on if it
exceeded,
meets certain parameters.
correct.
And then our most recent one we had before the board where there were several going up around town.
Those would have been administratively reviewed because they were all going on to utility poles that were in existing locations.
So the only thing that concerns me, there was residents that actually had a chance to speak to
The FCC has clearly indicated that's, they've sort of issued an order about how towns can, so if it's the greater good of providing a public utility has really the driving factor or driving force in this one.
That's why I wanted clarification. So
But we
those,
also
because
did
they
provide-
weren't telephone poles, they wouldn't have had to come back here.
Yeah, and Bernie, just I guess as like a note of clarification, it does specifically say, that like in a residential district, it's limited to 1 meter or less in diameter. So anything that is gonna be overly sized, if something changes going forward with technology, obviously they're gonna be 1 meter or less, cause that's.
Well, I'm
gonna
thinking
be
there was
within their
more
res-
than just the antenna, though. There was the round garbage
Right.
can thing.
Right, but I mean.
So, I mean, I just,
Yeah, I think in certain
And
ways,
it's
I
also-
think in certain ways that the hands are tied here.
No, I think
oh,
they
you
are.
know, I
mean,
get it.
Well, the other thing too is that we did indicate that, you know, that the equipment needed to be designed in a way to minimize visual impact. So if an application came in for administrative approval and it was a, you know, a rainbow of colors being proposed, I might say, hey, you're not demonstrating you meet this requirement, so you need to go to the planning board. The administrative review is not an option. So that,
So you have a good mechanism if you need. to.
correct, so the.
something that seems out of whack with the character, then you got something.
Yes, so if there's something that doesn't meet the requirements, then it can get kicked to the planning board as needed.
And just to be 100% clear, if they're going to put up a new pole,
They need to go to the
they
planning
need to
board,
come see us.
correct.
No matter what height the pole is.
No matter what height, any new location. And if they exceed in an existing location, the max height, then they have to come to this board anyway,
Okay.
so.
If everyone's comfortable, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
Please, any other questions?
Concerning Town Board referral number 2, proposed local law regarding text amendment to the town code, regulation of telecommunications, I move that we put forth a positive approval for this change in code.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? 0 abstain, 2 absent. We do have minutes, I believe.
Can you come back, Dan?
Sorry?
I said you can come back, Dan.
I think he left.
You're gonna want to approve those.
I am not, because I was absent. Yeah,
What's the date on them? I'll make the motion.
February 25th, oh, here.
Minutes were from February 25th, 2019.
Mr. Chair, on the minutes for February 25th, 2019, I would like to make a motion that we approve them as presented.
I'll second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
I'm abstaining.
And, I'm sorry, how many ayes? Please roll call. Bradley?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye. 4 ayes.
Abstain.
we're good.
Okay, just making sure.
2 abstains.
Yep, I abstain.
And before we adjourn, I just want to take a moment of personal privilege here and just wish John a happy anniversary.
Very sweet.
I knew there was a reason you were trying to keep this thing moving.
Yeah, huh?
I said,
Oh,
Happy anniversary to John.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting's over.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Planning Board on ICAT, Government Access. We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Planning Board on ICAT, Government Access.